What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum. Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. My name is Ryan. This is episode number 29. We are getting up there. Jam-packed show today. I've got some stories, just kind of based on the particular time of the year that it is. So welcome. Welcome if it's your first time. Welcome back if that applies to you. I try and say that every time because I am happy every time anybody tunes in. Got a longer kind of story-driven community topic this week. I'm going to try and pack in a short little technical section of whatever we have time for, and then of course another hyper ultra powered set to conclude Urza block. But before we get into any of that, huge thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com. They are the official sponsors of Commander Ad Populum. You can go there for all of your gaming needs. And of course, you can go to themanabase.com to check out all of Fusion Gaming's sponsored content. It's all there. It's all good. Second big thank you goes to all of the Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/CADPopcast. Couldn't do it without you guys either. I very much appreciate every one of you. And I am featuring a Patreon story coming up. It's one that took me by surprise, and I hope everybody is as astounded by it as I was. Just really quickly, at CADPopcast on Twitter, Commander Ad Populum on Facebook, of course. And if you do decide that you have the means to support the show financially, of course, patreon.com/CADPopcast. There is a Discord benefit associated with that. So those are all ways that you can interact with myself or the Commander Ad Populum community. Facebook and Twitter, we do have a thread for each episode. And you know what? For anybody who is catching up on episodes, I get told sometimes that people go back and binge if they discover the show randomly. You can comment on any of the previous threads, and I do get a notification for that. So I will see it. Of course, that applies to anybody who's sharing the show with their friends. If their friends want to go back and comment, I'd very much appreciate if you did that. Share or comment, that is. So that all being said, let's get into today's community topic just after this. So I'm recording this show about a week in advance or 10 days in advance of when it launches, and it's going to launch just after what we in Canada, and I think some parts of Europe, call Remembrance Day. In the United States, I'm told they call it Veterans Day. So if I call it Veterans Day or Remembrance Day, it's the same recognized holiday, November 11th, but we call it Remembrance Day, so that's how it exists in my mind for any of the US-based listeners. I'm talking about Veterans Day. So I've got a friend, his name is Ben. He is currently stationed abroad in what I think is what he calls a combat zone, and he's with the US Air Force. I don't know if I say any more than that just because I don't know if he wants me to, because I don't always have the ability to get in contact with him to ask him. But he's abroad. He's got a wife, very young child, 14-month-old child, I think. So him and I got to talking. This is maybe a month ago or so. And I wanted to pick his brain a little bit about Magic the Gathering, traveling, working away from home. I used to do all that before I did this. And having a very young child and working away comes with its own set of difficulties. But what he told me is that he started playing Magic in the last year that he was in college. And I think he's like some kind of aerospace engineer. Like he shoots rockets into space. And he always told me my space alters were like wrong because he knows all about space. So that was our little inside joke. Anyways, he said that since he joined the military, getting out of college, he's moved 12 times. 12 different moves, 3 significant ones. I assume that means like across the country to a different state or what have you, because he's in the military. It's hard on his wife, of course, because she has to pack up and go with him, right? And he laments or comments that that's part of what you sign up for when you join the military or you enter into a relationship with somebody in the military. I'm not so familiar with that portion of it because I've only ever moved a couple times in my life, but I wanted to cover this topic today because I think it gets missed a little bit post-Halloween, pre-Christmas. You know, stores are starting to switch over. There's not a whole bunch of Remembrance Day or Veterans Day holiday memorabilia that you can buy at Walmart or what have you. So stores go straight to Christmas because it is such a cash grab for people. And I just wanted to highlight say thank you, whatever it is. And lots of people say, well, Canada's not actively at war. And if you don't agree with the army or the military or government or whatever it is, that's not what I'm thanking people for. That's not why I want to cover this topic. I want to cover this topic because I have veterans in my family and they had fought in wars many years ago, and they are the reason that Canada, where I live, is the way that it is today. That's important to me. Having experience working away from home and maintaining a relationship with your significant other and being a dad, that's important for me to tell people that it is possible to do that. And I've got a little bit of a weird story that I'm going to get to in a minute that involves my interactions with a Canadian Forces veteran and my wife being in labor. And Canadian listeners might know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my friend Ben before we go on. So he says that wherever he travels, wherever he works or moves, he's attracted to people that he says he shares moral values with, people who are generally creative-minded. And how that connects to magic is he says that the people who he games with, they have this different connection through EDH or Commander specifically. It's different than board games. It's different than other magic. And I think maybe that is a result of the games being so much longer, so much more drawn out, and the cards that you're playing with in the game or playing against, if you play in an established meta and you recognize your opponent's decks, the actual cards feeling more like something greater is going on. You're fighting in your commander's name or for your commander, and it's more like war than just one-on-one magic. One-on-one magic to me has always felt a little bit more like chess when there's an established metagame or there's two experienced players going head-to-head. They know which moves are ideal. They know which hands to keep or to throw away, right? But in Commander, it's all up in the air. So I thought it was interesting that he specifically said he bonds through people he meets in the military by playing Commander. It's kind of got its own special feel, and it's not really like any other forms of magic. And that's what makes it special. And if you don't play, or if you're new to it and you haven't quite experienced that yet, and if you're new to Commander and you haven't quite experienced that yet, you're going to get it. You're going to get into a game. If you've never been in one of those 3-hour slogs that really feels like you're going to battle, and every time you get a foothold, somebody sweeps something out from underneath you. Like I remember I was playing in a game this weekend. I was building a commanding board state and building, and then I got Damnation. And I had a thing that can regenerate my creature, but Damnation doesn't let them regenerate. So, okay, back to the drawing board, back to the strategy phase or the card draw phase to start preparing for the next battle, essentially. So I build and plan, I'm scheming, I'm politicking, and then boom, Cyclonic Rift. But the guy didn't have a win con. He Cyclonic Rifted, so I didn't kill him on my following turn. Okay, back to the planning phase. I go, play a land, drop a bunch of stuff, pass the turn, goes back to the Cyclonic Rift player. He does some stuff that, again, just so he doesn't die. He's playing a Zedru deck, comes back to me, and don't I draw Time Warp? And play a bunch of stuff, equip a bunch of creatures, attack once, Time Warp, attack again. And the feeling that you get when you win one of these long games is, of course, not comparable to coming home from war or coming home from being deployed overseas. I understand that, but I can see how people would form a brotherhood in that kind of thing. I come from a family that has police officers, penitentiary guards, firefighters, and I'm told that the brotherhood that those people form in times of hardship is similar to those that are formed in the military or when serving. And my friend Ben had messaged me and said the groomsman of his wedding is actually somebody that he met while he was serving. And again, I can relate to that because one of my groomsmen, Brando from Commander Cookout, he was in my wedding. So the bonds you form playing EDH are like none other out there, and it's a special game. So I got a little bit of a story, and I had said that Canadian listeners might know what I'm talking about. So about 2 years ago, And I want to say about 2 years ago. It was pretty much exactly 2 years ago. It was when I was heading home from working up north when Rebecca, my wife, was in labor. She called me worst possible time of the day just for driving and flights and all the stuff that I had to do to get out of nowhere in the north to Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, half a day's flight away. And the gentleman that worked on night shift who drove me home was a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. And he told me all about his experience in our several hour drive that we had together. And I was blown away by some of the stuff that he told me, just his mentality towards things. And he tells me about his brotherhood with people he's served with and what have you. The only reason I'm saying this is several months later, this was the guy, and not to make the cast sound too political, but this was the guy that our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, this was the guy that Justin Trudeau said, "You're asking for more than we can give." So he asks a question about veterans and veterans affairs and payments for veterans. Trudeau says, "You're asking for more than we can give." His name was Brock Blazek. That was the guy, and he drove me to the airport for me to go home to see my wife. And when I'm talking to my friend Ben, just over Twitter instant messages about his experience overseas and his family life working abroad, it reminded me of the veteran who drove me home to take me out of the situation that Ben finds himself in being away. So I just thought it was interesting. It's kind of a small world, kind of a coincidence, and kind of a little piece of Canadian political trivia, if you will. Okay, for today's technical section, I want to spend just a couple minutes on that little experiment that I was talking about a few weeks back. I think this is the third or fourth time that I visited it. And essentially what it was, if you're new to Commander Ad Populum, is when somebody does something to you. Usually it's attacking. They just like turn 5 or 6 and they want to swing at you with their 4/4, their 5/5, just to get that chip-in damage. You say, "Hey, why are you swinging at me?" You kind of get them to tell you their thought process. And in doing so, you can offer them sort of a rebuttal in that, "Hey, this guy's open," or "They've got their doubling season online. You should hit them. Instead of playing their creature, they played a doubling season. That's only going to spell trouble for all of us." Blah, blah, blah. And in doing so, I've seen about a 50% change their mind rate. Do you know what I mean? The last time I talked about this, it was about a 60-75% change their mind rate. Now it's down to about 50, but I'm confident in saying that when I ask the question, because I don't do it every time, it would get old if I did it every time. When I ask the question, "Why are you attacking me?" or "What did I do?" or I offer up another suitable attack, it typically half the time changes the person's mind. So I've extended this to creature removal and other targeted effects in general, where it's just like, I don't know, that this is XYZ thing over here is probably a greater threat. And I've started to even a little bit use it while it's happening and after it's happening as a little bit of a teaching tool, where let's say I can't change their mind. They target my thing with a removal spell and I ask them, "Hey, you should do this," or "Are you sure you want to do that because this is more threatening?" And they say, "Yeah, this is what I think the biggest threat is." They target my thing, it dies. Fine. After the fact, just politely, I'll say something to the effect of, this commander and this card interact like this. All he needs to do is get a sack outlet, then he can go infinite. Right? And it adds that little layer of that little rider text underneath that card that I told him to target. Oh, that goes infinite with his commander. I'll have to remember that, or I'll have to remove that in response to him casting his commander, should he cast his commander, right? It adds that little layer of complexity to make them think next time I have a sweet creature that he wants to kill, next time he'll target that other thing that I told him to. So I'm free and clear next time. Or at least I'm free and clear 50% of the next times. So give it a go. That's not really a rules techie thing. That's more of a political thing. But you know what? If you're playing Commander, probably you already have a fairly sound interpretation of the Magic rules. You can hold your own, and where you can really start to gain edge gain an edge as you become a more experienced commander player is learning how to divert attention, or learning how to, I'm going to call it sandbag, or hold things back until the ideal moment for a multiplayer game. And of course, dissuading your opponents from hindering you, or persuading them to hinder your opponents. So that's today's technical section. I hope that people can kind of take what they can from that. Let me know if you've got any tricks like that you'd like me to feature. Again, Twitter and Facebook threads are available for this episode, or any of the previous ones where I've talked about this topic. Just a little political maneuver that I've found to be successful. All right, we have made it to the end of another block. Urza's Destiny today. I'm telling you, from here on out, we are probably not going to see the power level as a whole. We're going to see some cards for the Commander format that are just as powerful as the cards we see here, but not all from the same set. And remember, we've done a bunch of sets already, but we are still closer to the start of Magic than we are to current Magic. So, Urza's Destiny. Third set in the Urza block, or the artifact block, June 1999, 143 cards in the set, and that's back in the day. It was 350, 143, 143 is how the block system worked, and there was 2 blocks in standard at a time, plus 1 core set. So that's how it all worked. Urza's Destiny, you still got cyclers. I don't think we have any more echo creatures or echo cards in this set, but we do have things that trigger when they die. So sometimes you wish that they would have echo and you just wouldn't pay it, but I guess that's how they just switched it up. Tons of different cycles. Wizards was leaning into cycles a lot because they were growing at this time, despite people leaving the game because of how broken this block was. And of course, players like complete cycles of things. Speaking of which, they continued what they call a mega cycle with Urza's Destiny, and it was a legendary land called Yavamaya Hollow. So essentially, a super cycle is a cycle of something that exists over multiple sets. Yavamaya Hollow was a continuation from a legendary land cycle that started in Mirage, I think, with Tephrey's Isle, and it wasn't completed until Invasion. We're going to talk about all those cards because they're all legendary. There's Tephrey's Isle in Mirage, comes into play tapped, it's phasing, it gives you 2 blue. Volrath Stronghold we covered in Stronghold, the namesake of the set. Of course, Yavamaya Hollow is legendary land, taps for a colorless. You can tap green and it to regenerate target creature. So really powerful card, lets you block and then regenerate, or if somebody kills your thing, you can just leave it and green open to have your creature not die. So there's 2 more in that set. We're going to talk about them in coming weeks. Other than that, there wasn't a whole ton of cycles that were very pertinent to Commander, so I'd like to take this time to jump right into our legendary creatures. Like other Urza block sets, we've got 2 of them. We've got Rain, Academy Chancellor, and Rafello's Llanowar Emissary. So Rain is a 1/1 human wizard for blue 2. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. You may draw an additional card if Rain is enchanted. So, you're going to enchant her for most auras are combat based to give her a buff. Maybe you'll enchant her with a totem armor, which makes her less likely to be targeted by something an opponent controls because they can't kill it. So, I don't know, whenever she gets targeted, she's a 1/1 for 3. Are they going to target that? Is it that threatening? Get at me if you've got Rain, Academy Chancellor, Voltron deck. I don't know. I don't see anybody playing this card, but it was in Urza's Legacy. Rafello's Llanowar Emissary, on the other hand, green for an elf druid. He's a 2/1. Tap, add green to your mana pool for each forest you control. This card is banned in Commander. It's so good. It's kind of the polarized ends of the spectrum, right? And I mean, that's a perfect way to end Urza block with a banned card. This card is so powerful that you can't even play it in the format. if we want to move right along, we set the tone with Rafellos. How about we stick to that so powerful you can almost not play it in the format type card, Academy Rector. This was actually part of a turn 2 kill in Urza block standard. What it is a 1/2 cleric for white 3. When it dies, exile it, search your library for an enchantment, put it onto the battlefield. I don't remember what you searched for to win, but I know you could play this on turn 2 off of a whole bunch of fast mana that was in the block and Tempest block, and you could sacrifice this to Phyrexian Tower to get black and an enchantment onto the battlefield at the same time. So this was a very good card. And it commands it's got like a $60 price tag or something. So if you've got these, you could probably run them. Routinely, I see them get things like Defense of the Heart or Eldrazi Conscription, just things that you want to cheat into play, or things that let you cheat more things into play after it. And of course, Arena Rector lets you do the same thing for a Planeswalker. That was printed in Battle Bond, and it was a little bit of a riff off of Academy Rector. A little bit of Magic history trivia or something there for you. So moving on, we've got a False Prophet. This is another white card, white creature, 2/2 for white 2. When it dies, and that was kind of a theme in Urza's Legacy is creatures dying. When it dies, exile all creatures. So it's kind of like a rattlesnake if you attack, or if I have a sack outlet, if you attack me, I'll just exile everything. So that's a good card. Lots of angels in the set. Lots of angels in Urza block in general, really. Next card, Opalescence. It turns all enchantments into creatures with power and toughness equal to their converted mana cost. This card is a nightmare. There's all kinds of layering and what's its power and toughness, and it's very powerful magic, but very nightmarish magic. Routinely at events, you will see judges get called for weird layering rulings when this card is out. But if you have it, run it. I mean, if you're a little bit of a rules junkie, you can run it just to maybe flex on your friends. It's a fun card. Next one, Replenish. Sorcery for 4 mana, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Super powerful magic again. I don't know how many times I have to say that Urza block is it when it comes to general power level of a set. Everything is super powerful. Get all the enchantments back from your graveyard to your battlefield. Super good. Next up, Aura Thief. It's a 2/2 for 4 with flying. When it dies, gain control of all enchantments. You just kill your own Aura Thief and you just get all of the enchantments. Doubling Season, Mirari's Wake, Defense of the Heart, Eldrazi Conscription, all enchantments that are very commonly played in Prolific and Commander that I've mentioned very recently, as recent as this show even, to you just get them to your battlefield when you kill your own creature. It's awesome. Donate was originally in this set. It was a sorcery for blue 2. Target player gains control of target permanent you control. So this was popular back in the day with in Legacy with Illusions of Grandeur. When it enters a battlefield, you gain 20 life, then you donate it, and it's got cumulative upkeep. So when they can't pay for it anymore, it leaves the battlefield and its controller loses 20 life. So interesting cards, kind of fallen out of favor, but Zedru decks still play this kind of thing. Harmless Gift or Harmless Offering or whatever, and Donate go along with that Liliana's Contract card where you get to choose one, and then the last thing you choose is lose the game, and then you donate it, and then the opponent can only choose lose the game. That's cool. That's cool. Opposition, another enchantment. Tap an untapped creature you control. Tap target artifact, creature, or land. So popular in token decks that run blue, or blink decks where you can tap your thing to tap their thing, and then you blink it or exile it and return it to the battlefield, your thing, so it comes back untapped and you can tap another thing. So Opposition, fairly powerful, and I think it was reprinted in 7th edition. It's seen a few reprints. Moving along, Treachery. This is the last blue card we're going to talk about. It's one of those ones that when you cast it or when it enters the battlefield, you untap the amount of land that you tapped to cast the spell. So essentially it's free. Blue 3. When it comes into play, you untap 5 lands, gain control of enchanted creatures. So you're getting a creature essentially for free, or you're gaining mana on a creature if you can tap something that taps for more than 1 mana. I think the real strength of Urza's legacy comes in the form of the black cards. So we've got Apprentice Necromancer. It lets you sacrifice it to get a creature back from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, attrition, sack a creature, destroy target non-black creature. Bubbling Muck essentially doubles all of your swamps when you tap them for black. Carnival of Souls. This is a very underplayed card, but I've seen it used to great effect. It's an enchantment for black 1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you lose a life and you get a black mana. So I've seen it in the black-white Soul Sister kind of gain life aristocrat style deck. And every time you play a creature, you would gain life from your Soul Sister type cards. Then you get a black to play another creature or put another token onto the battlefield. And you're just like negating that 1 life loss, and you're going up a black mana every time you get a creature. So you can play another one and another one and another one. Ravenous Rats was originally printed in this set. When it enters the battlefield, target player discards a card, which is usually negligible or not very good in Commander, but in rat decks that have some amount of repeatable graveyard recursion or reanimation, you can Ravenous Rats, that of course it fits into the rat deck, you can sacrifice it for whatever benefit you have built into your deck, then reanimate it. Sacrifice it again, reanimate it, sacrifice it again, and you're just going to rip somebody's hand right out of their hand into their graveyard. And being a rat, of course, like I said, fits right into the rat deck. I'm going to mention that Yogmoth's Bargain was in this set as our last black card, but it's also banned in Commander. And again, just a homage to the block that was and the block that is probably the most powerful one of all time. So essentially, enchantment, 6 mana, skip your draw step, pay 1 life, draw a card. That's all of the text on the entire card. Skip your draw step, pay 1 life, draw a card. There's a couple red cards I'd like to highlight. One that I've used to great effect is Repercussion, enchantment for red 1. Whenever a creature is dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to that creature's controller. So if you can Earthquake or some damaged base removal spell to a creature, you're also going to dome that creature's controller. And if they've got a ton of creatures and you can Earthquake for 5 or 6 with a Repercussion out, you're going to do 5 or 6 times however many creatures they have. Token deck, 10 creatures, each one takes 5, you're going to 50 them. Like, that is a powerful card. A little bit of a build-around card, I'll admit, but in the right deck, it's going to do some serious damage and can be considered a win condition because you can pack a density of big burn spells as cards you'd already play for removal or sweeper effects. As soon as you draw or tutor for your Repercussion, you just win. Next and last red card we're going to talk about in the set, one that doesn't see a whole ton of play, but if you did want to be this person, or if your play group is down for it, or if you have the discussion and everybody knows what they're in for, Wake of Destruction. Sorcery for red 3. Destroy target land and all lands with the same name. Oh, there are games where all 3 of your opponents have the same name on their basics. Might be swamp, might be plains, might be island. As long as it's not mountain, you're probably good. Or if it is mountain, make sure you build with a lot of non-basics that give you red so you can cast your Wake of Destruction and ruin your opponent's day. Again, just have the discussion, let them know that you're playing land destruction or that's how your deck aims to win. Or like I talked about a couple weeks ago, have a plan to win if that's the strategy that you're employing. On to green, we've got Elvish Piper. This is the original set that it was in. It was an elf for 4. It's a 1/1. You could pay green, tap it, put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield. This was, and still is, a few bucks and sees play in big creature green decks, elf ball decks. It's good. There's a couple other effects that do this in any color, but of course, they're not as efficient as Elvish Piper because it's green. Next card, Pattern of Rebirth. I think that this was reprinted in Eternal Masters or something. So it's an enchant creature, an aura, for green 3. When enchanted creature dies, that creature's controller may search their library for a creature card, put it onto the battlefield. So you enchant your creature for 4, you kill it or have it die, you search for something bigger and nastier. So that's a cool card. And it was getting expensive, I think, and then it was reprinted in Ultimate Masters, which gave it a new art, new card frame, and people really liked that reprint. Last green card, one that I think a little bit fell out of favor, Yavamaya Elder. This used to be one of the top green creatures in the whole format back in the day when I started playing Commander, like in 2010 or whatever. This was an all-star. It was a 2/1 human druid for green 1. When Yavamaya Elder dies, search your library for 2 basics, put them into your hand. So you get them into your hand, it's not really ramp, but you never miss mana, like you never miss land drops. And it had a sacrifice ability built right onto it with 2 sacrifice, draw card. So essentially, sacrifice, draw card, resolve the search ability after you draw to find 2 more cards. So you could pay all in 5, and it's sort of like drawing 3 in green. And I think green has just got better ramp options and better card draw options now. And a lot of them are attached to creatures. This was a creature, it's just fallen out of favor, so that's fine, but not as good as it used to be. I'll spend just a couple seconds talking about Junk Diver. This is our first artifact we're going to look at. It's a 3-drop 1/1 flying artifact. When it dies, you get an artifact from your graveyard, put it onto your hand. Junk Diver is the first instance in Magic that we saw that type of effect. So when people refer to things as Junk Divers or divers, they're talking about artifact from graveyard to hand type abilities. So cool card, sees play alongside the likes of like Mirror Retriever and stuff that get stuff back from your graveyard. There's 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 effects that do this kind of thing in EDH, and they're all artifacts. They go into, your blue-based kind of artifact combo decks, your Duretti decks that kind of just want to sacrifice and get artifacts back, your Glissas, your colorless decks, what have you. Next up, Metalworker. I've seen turn 1 Kozilek Butcher of Truth off the back of a Metalworker. This card's no joke. I think it used to be banned in Commander, but it's legal now. So it's a 1/2 for 3. Artifact creature, reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand, add 2 colorless mana for each card revealed this way. So essentially it was like, of course, Mishra's Workshop, because why not, right? Like, sure. Mishra's Workshop into Metalworker, Mana Crypt playing Lightning Greaves, equipping, revealing 5 artifacts or 4 artifacts or whatever it was to get the mana to cast a Voltaic Key to untap his Metalworker, to tap it again, to get enough mana turn 1 to cast Kozilek, draw 4 cards, equip Kozilek with Lightning Greaves, swing for 10, Annihilator 4, before anybody else even had a land on the battlefield. So when anybody says that Urza block isn't the most broken time in Magic history, Metalworker. Last 2 cards of the day. Thran Dynamo. 4-drop, tap, add 3 colorless. It's been printed a ton of times in Commander Precons. Mana Rock, staple at 4 mana. If you need a Mana Rock at 4 mana, Thran Dynamo is it, because it gives you 3. I think it's the standard at 4 mana. Last card, Urza's Incubator. This was in 2015 Commander Precon. The Boros one, I want to say, the giant tribal, right? That was a great deck. 3-drop. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 2 less to cast. Super cool card. It got expensive for a while, then it was reprinted in 2015, and I think it still commands a fairly hefty price tag because it was never printed again. Commander Anthologies, it was printed. Sorry, because that one deck did get reprinted. So it's like $14 or $15. And that is all of Urza block. Awesome set. This is the set that taught me how to play Magic. It shaped a lot of the values that I saw in certain types of cards, decks, gameplay interactions. It's a ton of fun. It was the set that foils were introduced in for all you foil lovers out there. If anybody out there has their own experiences, memories, knowledge, hidden gems, hidden interactions with Urza's Destiny or any of the Urza block, let me know at CADPopcast on Twitter, Commander Ad Populum on Facebook, cadpopcast@gmail.com, or if you're a Patreon supporter, you could let me know on the Discord. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to go on any of those social media platforms and share the show with your friends, I would very much appreciate it. Help me grow the show. I love talking about Magic. I love hearing from people. I love when people say that they're a new listener and they binge the entire backlog. It's getting longer, 29 episodes. Huge thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com for all of your Urza's Legacy needs. If you are that broken and degenerate player, you will love this set. I encourage everybody, go on Scryfall or Gatherer, look up the whole block. I guarantee you'll find hidden gems for your minion tribal, your angel tribal, or your degenerate combo decks. Great time in Magic history now that we're past that point in Magic history. So that's it. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Commander Ad Populum, everybody. I will see you next Wednesday.